he stood there, as you say, over a grave with his trademark thumbs up sign. And one or two of the Arlington staff, I think, pointed out that there are rules as to how you conduct yourself in Arlington, and one of those is that you're not allowed to take photographs or shoot video at the grave sites, especially those more recent ones. This meant that Trump's people were challenged and they pushed back. Now, Trump's campaign absolutely denies that there was any physical confrontation, just a verbal one. Arlington isn't really commenting, but sources to various US media, which are picking this up, and it's playing very hard here, are saying that there was a physical altercation.
Alistair Dawber, of course, is the Washington correspondent for the Times and the Sunday Times. Welcome to the show, Alistair.
Hi, Ed, how are you doing?
Really well, and I'm excited because it's Kamala Harris's first TV interview, and there are two really interesting things here which I think are worth discussing. The first is who she chose to be interviewed by. You know, we've had this big discussion about the debate with Trump, but choosing who does her first interview is a big issue. And also, she's taking the vice president candidate. So talk us through those two bits.
Well, first of all, Kamala Harris hasn't given an interview to the press, the networks, in the now, I think it's 38 days since she became the Democratic candidate. She's becoming a lot of pressure for that. She's not talking to the press. People say she's not opening herself up to scrutiny. So tonight, for the first time, we see her on TV. She's doing an interview with CNN, which I think your listeners are probably aware that CNN is quite a liberal broadcaster in the States. It's got a reputation of being very tough on Trump, perhaps a bit less tough on the Democrats. And so straight away, the Republicans and Trump's campaign have said, you know, she's going for a softball interview, she's going to get easy questions, and she's not going to be really challenged on the things that Americans want to know, her policies and what she'll do as president. The other sort of slightly controversial aspect, I suppose, is that she's taking along Tim Walz, her running mate, the guy who's going to be vice president if she wins in November. Again, you know, the accusation there from the Republicans is that she needs a babysitter to help her along with some of the more difficult questions when she's asked them later on.
Yeah, and I think there's some merit in that. I mean, she may say that she's kind of introducing the ticket, but it does seem odd to have the vice president. The actual interviewer, Dana Bash, I mean, she's very well known. She was presumably one of these multi-million-dollar political interviewers that the Americans pay so much money to. But tell me a bit about her in terms of how she's likely to approach this interview.
Well, I mean, she's also a very professional broadcaster as well, and I'm sure that she will ask the tough question. Dana Bash is very experienced. She's done presidential debates before. She's broadcast from around the world. But it is true that unlike in the UK, where our broadcasters are bipartisan, they're neutral, in America those rules don't exist. And you have broadcasters who lean to the left, as people say that CNN does, and others that lean to the right as well. And they say it's not any surprise that Kamala Harris, who's been in negotiations with the broadcasters for some time now about when she does an interview, who she does it with, and as you just alluded to there, who the interviewer is. It's not really a surprise that she's plucked CNN out the air and Dana Bash has been picked to be the interviewer.
Now, look, I don't know how impartial I meant to be, but obviously I think Donald Trump is a pretty extraordinary figure, as in ghastly. But even he, I don't think, I mean, this photo shoot at Arlington Cemetery, he had himself photographed at the gravesite. Well, it was a wreath-laying ceremony, but it was by the graves of 13 US servicemen and women killed in the 2021 suicide bomb attack outside Kabul airport. Of course, it was 3 years. In fact, we marked it on the programme by doing a big thing about women's rights in Afghanistan. It's 3 years since the Americans pulled out. So it was obviously designed to remind the American people about the chaotic withdrawal which happened under President Biden, even though the withdrawal was signed by Trump. But he's there with his sort of thumbs up by somebody's grave. And now there are reports that some of his team were incredibly rude, shoved and verbally abused an employee during the photo shoot. Tell us about this story and tell us as well kind of how big is it playing?
It's quite a remarkable story, really. As you say, it's 3 years since the withdrawal from Afghanistan when the Marines, or mostly members of the Marine Corps, were killed. Donald Trump marked that on Monday by, as you say, going to Arlington Cemetery. And for, I think, pretty much your listeners are aware, Arlington Cemetery is a site just outside Washington, D.C., where lots of American war dead are buried. There are thought to be about 400,000 graves at Arlington. He turned up there on Monday to mark this occasion, obviously, I think, making a political point that the withdrawal had been a bit disastrous. And the Biden administration hadn't really understood the speed with which the Taliban was taking control in Afghanistan again. He stood there, as you say, over a grave with his trademark thumbs up sign. And one or two of the Arlington staff, I think, pointed out that there are rules as to how you conduct yourself in Arlington. And one of those is that you're not allowed to take photographs or shoot video at the grave sites, especially those more recent ones. This meant that Trump's people were challenged and they pushed back. Now, Trump's campaign absolutely denies that there was any physical confrontation, just a verbal one. Arlington isn't really commenting, but sources to various US media which are picking this up, and it's playing very hard here, saying that there was a physical altercation.
I can't understand how Trump gets away with it. I mean, he trashed John McCain as a loser for being captured by the Viet Cong, even though he endured 5 years of captivity and torture. He trashes people who die in war as losers. Veterans are so important to the American psyche. How does he get away with it?
He's got his grip over the Republican Party. And I mean, he famously said in 2016 that he could stand on Fifth Avenue in New York and shoot someone and he wouldn't lose any votes. I mean, there is merit to that comment. He gets away with a lot. He's obviously a convicted felon now. He's someone who has his core of support. Now, you know, I'm not a political strategist, but I would have thought trash talking, as they say here, veterans, dead veterans, people who are honoured here in the US is not necessarily a particularly wise political strategy. But what Donald Trump was trying to point out is that these killed US soldiers are dead because of Joe Biden and his policies, and by extension, Kamala Harris, and that as president, he would withdraw America from foreign wars. So I think that was the point he was trying to make. You're the politician. I'm not sure it works.
I can just about discern the political point that he was trying to make. That's Alistair Dawber, the Washington correspondent at the Times and Sunday Times, talking about the two big political stories in America. Kamala Harris making her sitting down for her first interview since she became the Democratic nominee for president. She's doing it with CNN's Dana Bash, but she's also bringing her vice presidential candidate, Tim Walz, and also the extraordinary story of the Donald Trump photo shoot at Arlington Cemetery, which is the US's national cemetery for men and women who fell in war.
Do you know why she's not doing it? Because she can't do a news conference. She doesn't know how to do a news conference. She's not smart enough to do a news conference. And I'm sorry, we need smart people to lead this country because our country's never been in this danger before, both economically and from an outside perspective. Russia doesn't respect us anymore.